Thanks, mate.
Of course, thank you.
So a lot of these faces you'll probably recognise, but I'm going to invite them up onto the stage. So we have John Garrett, the founder of Community Impact. Once he's finished networking, which is what this festival's about, right? So let's not stop that. I've got Colin Pope, the head editor for ABJ. Bruce Walden, VP of MS Austin Radio, or KLBJ. And Eric Lasberg, CEO of KXAN. Thank you very much for everyone joining us. Perfect. So I guess I'm sitting in the middle. So firstly, is this on? You guys hearing this? You are? Okay, perfect. So firstly, I just wanted to thank everybody that's sitting at this panel today. While I haven't met everybody before this event today, we've had unbelievable support from every single media in Austin, from radio to television to print media. So I would love everyone just to give a round of applause to the people sitting on the panel today. We're hoping to really get the message out about today, is that regardless of whatever your product and service is, we all think that media is what we absolutely need to get our message out there to the world. And we're going to share some tips and strategies and just have an open dialogue about how we can make that happen. But also, what I want to do first is I just really want to frame this, because I don't want everybody to think that media is the be-all and end-all, and if we don't get media coverage, our business is going to fail. Or if we do get media coverage, well, now we're going to be super successful. So what I might do first is I really want to ask Eric, just firstly, to give us a little bit of real context to that. Is media the make or break of most people's businesses?
Yes. Hit me a microphone didn't work. Sorry. No, so I mean, I guess what I'd like to say about that is, look, I mean, when you're trying to get media exposure, you're basically trying to market your business. I mean, that's part of the plan, right? And when it comes to marketing your business, yeah, you need exposure. I mean, marketing is getting exposure for your value proposition. So yes, media exposure would be part of the plan. But as far as getting it done through maybe a press release or some free media, the odds are against that, frankly. And you probably need to manage your expectations that way. I mean, obviously you can pay for media coverage, and that's a different conversation altogether. But yes, I mean, you want to get the word out. Marketing is essential for a business to thrive. I mean, a lot of businesses have failed because they haven't marketed themselves properly.
Thank you. And we had an interesting panel. I'm not sure if anyone here was at our Tuesday panel that we had, where Starley Murray, who's interviewing people like crazy at the back, she interviewed a whole group of people from the same medias on our community stage, because, as you know, we try to create as much free content as we possibly can for the community. And one of the really important, I think, variables that came out was that the media is really wanting to help. They're just inundated with stories and inundated with press releases, and they're trying to do their best to filter through what classifies as newsworthy and what doesn't. But this word newsworthy kind of makes sense to perhaps me, perhaps the people sitting on the stage, but perhaps not everybody that's watching. So what I might do is, Colin, would you mind sharing? I mean, you see 100 stories come up for the ABJ, and everyone believes their story should be on the front page.
Sure. Yeah, no, I just outside before I got to this event ran into a prominent local business executive who's asking me how things are going, and I said, well, gosh, for every 10 stories that we write, there's another 10 that I wish we could have gotten to. And it is very frustrating. And what a lot of people don't recognize is that news is more so a science than it is an art. And it's not like reporters kind of just sit around thinking, well, what am I going to write about today? We're getting information pitched to us all the time, and it's our job to figure out, is this information actually news? And so what I would love for you all to know is how to see if the information that you've got to pitch a reporter is news or not. And we reporters and editors, we look at 5 things, and it's pretty simple. The first one is proximity. Is this happening relatively close to where we and our audience is at? Second, of course, is timeliness. Timeliness, if it happened today or if it's going to happen tomorrow, that's timeliness. If it happened last week, it might be too late to get coverage on that. And then impact, that's a huge one. And all of these are pretty equally important, but you know, what kind of an impact is this going to have? If your company is going to hire you know, 10 people in the next 6 months, well, okay. If your company is going to hire 100 people in the next 6 months, obviously the impact is bigger, and then you've got news there. And then celebrity is another one. So if you start a company, I don't know if, you know, we necessarily will write about that. If Michael Dell starts another company, we probably will write about that. So celebrity does make a big difference. And then finally, it's novelty. So if you're coming out with the next Groupon, you know, we may not be writing about you, but if you're coming out with something completely different, I told somebody the other day, if you're going to come out with the next, you know, with another computer, blah, but if you're going to come out with, you know, the computer that sits on your desk, but if you're going to come out with a computer that sits inside of your head, well, yeah, that's pretty novel, and so, you know, there's a big difference there. So those are the 5 things that distinguish information from news. And we, as journalists, our hands are tied. You know, we must adhere to the standards of journalism, and just because you're our friend, you know, that does nothing for you, unfortunately. It does, however, help to have a relationship, because just like anything, you know, who you know really makes a difference. So I always advocate, get to know the reporter that's on your beat. If you're a technology company, get to know the tech reporter, maybe Lori Hawkins over at the Statesman, or my tech reporter over at the Austin Business Journal, Mike Cronin. Because we editors, I mean, we're the bosses of the newsroom, but really, I don't know how it works in everybody's newsroom, but in my newsroom, I don't tell my reporters every day, go write about this, go write about that, because I would be a fool if I knew their beat better than they did. So they come to me and they say, today I'm going to write about this, and tomorrow I'm going to write about that, and 9 times out of 10, I'll accept that. So that's kind of how it works.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think that's really valuable advice. Talking about Mike, he was on our panel on Tuesday, and he got off and he said, was that a little bit too brutal honesty? And I said, no, it's exactly what everyone needed to hear. Because what he said was, we're in the media, we want to help everybody. We want to make sure, I mean, if you have a small business, we want to write about it. But we want to, if we have to write about everyone, we'd be writing 400 articles a day, because that's how many emails that they get. But if you've got something that's absolutely media worthy, then we want you to hassle us. We want you to let us know, but you get one chance. Because if you hassle us and your story is not media worthy, well, that's the last chance you're going to get to speak to us. So you really want to make sure that you choose the exact right time, not just now because you'd prefer it now, but the exact right time to reach out. So, John, I really want to direct this question to yourself. I mean, Community Impact has free papers that go off right across Austin, or right across Greater Austin, and you get presented a lot of different stories. And you've supported us for the last 2 years. And this year a lot more directly, last year indirectly, because you found out about us and you were like, well, this is something that fits and we want to put it through, and it was just from a press release. So I'd love for you to share a little bit in context about what is it you look for and what is the best way to communicate with an organization like yourself?
Yeah, thanks. We're actually in Austin, Houston, and Dallas now. We've got 22 papers around the state. And where we come from a business standpoint, small business standpoint, is really the heart of who we are. My parents owned a small business and worked with a lot of small businesses here in Austin. And we started the paper really because big boxes were coming to town, and we felt like if we could be a voice to the mom and pops, at the time it was just Round Rock and Pflugerville, then the citizenry would want to know that, they'd want to shop at these places. And so we're a really unique model. We're not a pay-for-play like everyone loves our impacts page, which has the new openings and closings of businesses on the map. People don't pay for that. We actually are out looking for those, and we actually love your press releases when you're opening a new business, and you don't have to be Michael Dell to get into our paper. We love the idea that we can help businesses who are just starting, and we've had like great examples. There's a bait shop in Pflugerville that opened when Lake Pflugerville opened, and we did a little impact on them, and they ran out of bait, because our distribution is so high. We're now 1.7 million households around Texas. So everybody who lives in the area that you start your business in gets community impact, and our mission is to help businesses thrive. And we do have a different model than these guys, and I understand where they come from because they don't have the kind of the same focus, and there's just no way they could do all the new business listings that we do. But that's our model, and it goes right to the heart of who we are. We're not covering sports. We're not doing some of the same thing that some of these other folks are doing. So we get to have fun with the business owners. That's probably why our editorial team loves y'all and what we're doing here, and we do want to help local, and we believe in local, and we believe in local communities. Amazon's not sponsoring any Little League baseball teams. We believe Main Street's important, and so we try to help editorially. Certainly, we love your advertising, but editorially, unrelated, we like to help local businesses thrive. So,
perfect, and thank you for sharing that. I think one of the things that we just identified here is you're not the same as everybody else, and Colin's not the same as everybody else, and Bruce isn't the same as everybody else. Everybody has different focuses, and they all focus on making sure that their demographic of listeners or readers are the ones that are supported. So it's so vitally important that everybody that's listening to this today understands exactly, just very similar to how Colin said, that he doesn't get involved in what Mike's beat is because Mike will understand it much better than anyone else. And that's really important to understand. So everybody out there, like, well, why won't all the media just cover me? Well, the answer is that they may not even write or do segments on what you're wanting to offer. So it's important that you understand not only what each one of the medias is trying to give to their audience, but secondly, which reporter is actually the one that's focused on that. Because if you reach out to somebody that's all about technical and you talk to them about small business festival, they go, well, that doesn't make sense to me. And I can't report about that. So it's not, hey, I've got a friend in the media, or hey, I'm just going to send out a press release to everybody. It's who specifically should I reach out to, and what am I specifically going to say to them? And it's also important that everybody realizes that media is a business. They support jobs. They pay everybody every day. And to be able to do that, they've got to be able to keep their listeners and their readers happy. So, Bruce, I'd really like you to sort of share a little bit of content around how many people reach out to the radio network frequently, and what happens if you put something on radio that doesn't speak to the direct audience.
Well, just like you've heard already, we have a lot of people. I mean, we have sales assistants that will get press releases trying to get something on the air, which they have no influence over that. So there's a lot of people, we've already heard that. We get a lot of those every single day. Are you asking me, is there something that we can't relate to that we end up covering? Is that where you're going with that?
Well, let's look at it this way. Media is a business. Mm-hmm. So if you're not putting exactly what your readers and your listeners want on your networks,
yes,
people go somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
Very similar to if you're a restaurant and you have a sandwich that nobody eats, they're going to go to the restaurant next door.
Yes, well, I guess that's where the issue comes in. It's so hard to get through, and there's got to be an angle. I think, KLBJ AM is a sponsor of this, but we have 7 stations in our group. And so I can go, for example, Dudley and Bob on KLBJ FM. That's not a news program, but there's probably more opportunity to get airtime with them because they do a lot of charity work and they're tying in things like that. And if you're just doing something a little bit quirky in the community, they may, kind of latch onto that and cover it. You have to be Dudley and Bob how they're going to treat your business and what's going to happen because they're a little bit tricky. A few people here do that. And then the same with Jason and Deb on 101X. So we do have that where we're not all just delivering news. But to really answer your question, there's not much of that gets on because of the filters that we have. There's so many filters, and it's, getting back, it's so difficult to get it on. There's not many times we're not addressing the needs of our priorities are the needs of our listeners. When we, serve them, then we serve our clients, and then we're obviously serving our employees, which then in turn is serving the community. And that's kind of what we do. So it has to break through all of those. To get there.
And I'll point out too that responsible news organizations understand the difference between what news readers want and what news readers need and deserve. And over at the Business Journal every day, we know, well, no, this isn't going to be the most read story, but it's the most important story for Austin. So it's going to go above the Chick-fil-A opening in South Austin because we know everybody's going to read the Chick-fil-A story. But people might not read about this, other deal. But the other deal is a bigger deal than Chick-fil-A. So, we spend a lot of time. Again, we have tremendous obligations to our industry and consequently you to uphold. And so, the threshold to get into the, even the little ABJ is Austin Business Journal is pretty high. Just yesterday, our top stories was that we broke in town. Apple is starting a $1 billion investment fund. There's 2 new skyscrapers that are going to start turning dirt over at the Domain, and then Texas's first medical marijuana company is going to start growing weed 15 minutes north of downtown. So that's your competition, After I mentioned, and you say, oh, okay, I've run this through the ringer. This is truly news. Well, then the next challenge that hurdle you've got to jump is, does this news trump whatever else is out there? And that sometimes can be the most difficult thing. Today was a relatively slow news day, so maybe a story.
Is that why we got you here today, mate?
Huh?
Is that why we got you here today?
That's right. Yeah. No $1 billion deals today, I don't think.
Well, we
One more
consider
thing
ourselves.
about when you approach a television station for a press release, remember we're video. So I'd add to that list emotion. We love emotion. We love to show emotion on air with our people's stories. And so if you could have, somebody consuming your product and then just crying and just bliss, that's a good shot to get on the air.
Thank you. So let's talk. Okay, we understand that everybody gets 400 press releases a day, and everyone gets text messages, and we're now recording videos crying and sending them to KXAN. And please do that. I'm looking forward to seeing that happen. So we're doing this, and we understand now, and I think this is important, that everybody is trying to help all the small businesses. So while they say yes to 4 people, they feel horrible about saying no to 396 other people, and it makes them feel horrible about having to say, sorry, you're not as important as this other thing. But let's say you are one of those 4, and you've got that idea that everybody wants to hear about. Well, then we need to know how to approach media. And one of the things I learned on Tuesday, because Starley asked amazing questions, was that every single media likes to find out about what's happening in the news in a different way. So when you're sitting there and going, okay, I'm going to send a press release or I'm going to reach out to the media, every single person that's on this panel, Small Business Festival reached out to them in a very different way that had an impact that got them to support us and then got them onto this panel. So what I would really love is if everybody, and I'm going to open this up, if everybody could just share the way that they generally prefer people reaching out to them.
For my staff, we love emails. They're good for us. Like newsroom@communityimpact.com is a good way. If you go to communityimpact.com, there's contact us. I love our page because you can break down to who you're trying to get to by market. So if you're opening up a new store in Round Rock or Westlake, you can go to that market. And then we've got these real fun photos of our staff, so you can see the editor or the reporter. And then, like, if you scroll over it, their picture changes into something they like. So and there's direct contact information there. So it's kind of a fun way to connect. So we want you to connect directly with we're a geographically based news organization. So if you're in Central Austin, we want you to connect with our Central Austin team. And if you mess it up, if you don't really know where you belong, that's okay. We'll get you to the right place based on your address. But we're happy for you to reach out via email. If you want to call our main line, we're there as well. You'll always get somebody to answer the phone. I'm one of you guys. Like, my wife and I own the company. We started from the game room of our house. So that's why the passion for local business and small businesses, I love what we do, what y'all do. So we like that. Our staff loves that. And you're not going to bother us. We have the privilege of being more of a monthly. So Colin's pumping out stuff every day, every week. He's got stuff going on. So our staff's a little bit more laid back and has a little bit more time to digest information. We want to know about it first. Like, don't send it to Colin or KXN, or we want to know about it first. But we'd love to hear from you via email or phone call. We're fine either way.
I think it's Colin's turn now.
It really is. Email is preferred. It's just nice to have something on writing. Reporters really are bombarded, and there's so much to get through. I always tell people, and this is the honest God truth, as long as I have less than 500 unread emails, I feel good. If I have more than 500 emails, I still sleep like a baby at night, but I notice it. So the information coming into a newsroom is amazing. There's so much of it. But emails, and make sure, again, how the venue of communication is somewhat important, but more important is who you're communicating to, and make sure it's the reporter, again, on the beat that covers you, and establish a relationship with them, but also maintain that relationship with them, because reporters can easily forget, because we've got so much going on, they can easily forget, that you're out there. And so maybe they're writing a story about your industry and you would fit right in, and if they would think of you, they would call you. Well, so one thing that I urge people to do is just call the reporter that's on your beat every, I don't know, once a month, every couple of weeks, something like that. But make regular contact and just talk to them. You can pitch your ideas and say, we got this going on. Do you think this is newsworthy? But also let them know what's going on in your industry, and maybe you've got some news on a competitor or something like that. That's how business journal reporters live and die, is off of human conversations. I tell the reporters all the time, if a press release comes out on your beat and you didn't know about that, you probably didn't do your job. And so how are you going to get, information before it comes out, before it's announced? You just have to talk to people. And so that's what the reporters are doing in and day out. So they definitely enjoy taking your phone calls. And it's tough. Don't get offended if they can't have coffee or lunch, with you, because, again, they're just bombarded. But at least make the effort to reach out by email or phone maybe once a month, and that will really go far and maybe pay some dividends down the road.
I think the other thing to remember is that everybody here has families as well, and things happen in their families. Colin just had a newborn child, and I was like, why is Colin not calling me back? Why are we not friends? Did I do something wrong? I mean, everybody thinks that. Did I do something wrong? Why is he not reaching out to me anymore? We have things that happen in our lives. We all do. And we know that when it happens, sometimes we have to go and tend to our family, as opposed to answering our phone and replying to text messages all the time. And the reason why I thought I'd share that is, Small Business Festival was on radio and TV and print, I think 20 or 30 times in the 20 days as we marketed, yet I still had that exact same thought and then went, idiot, no, that's not what's going on. There must be something else. And of course, Colin then reached out and said, sorry, mate, these things happen, right? So you've got to remember that sometimes there are other reasons for why you're perhaps not getting a return call. So what I really think we should do, Eric, is let's move across to video and see whether or not that in the way of getting communicated to is different in that format.
I mean, it really isn't. I think the basics stay the same. I mean, to increase your probability of getting exposure in a TV station goes back to what Colin said. Relationships are the foundation. That you will get more attention, more. Somebody to listen to you with a relationship than without. So you got to work the relationship. And so then you go back to some of the other basics, persistence. Just because you send in one press release doesn't mean you should stop. You should continue to send in press releases and continue to persist. And then just the press release itself, like in the TV world, I would really, like I said, focus on, relating the story about your business in a story fashion about, particularly it would be, best case would be about a person and the effect that your product or service will have on this person. And so relating it to a story about a person, we love stories about people. And then I also would say, start out with a bang. I mean, that press release, the first few sentences really need to clearly state that one thing that really is the essence of why your product and service or company is special. And we'll talk about the one thing later when it comes to paid marketing, but that is a critical component of marketing, is that you really just want to hang your hat on one thing. So.
Perfect. And Bruce, what about your perspective from radio? How do you prefer?
Well, when you're talking about KLBJ AM, it's a lot of what you've heard so far. News director and reporters, if you know who they are, you'd contact them through email, or a lot of times people have a phone dialogue. If you're looking at some of our other properties, again, Dudley and Bob and Jason and Deb, same thing, but you're going to go through their producers, and I would use a multi-approach. I wouldn't just send an email or anything like that. Believe it or not, the number of gifts that come to the Dudley and Bob show from businesses trying to get free on-air time is amazing. I'm not saying that's what it takes, but people do that. So I think they come and they deliver a handwritten note. They send an email. Sometimes they'll send a telegram, weird things. They'll make art and send it to them. They're just trying to find an angle to get attention because, again, they have so many people coming after them they can't sift through. But our news reporters and our news director on KLBJ AM, they're used to that, and there is a protocol. One hint I heard from, I think it was the Tuesday session, that I'd really never heard this before, is when you send a press release, don't send it as an attachment. Send it in the body of the email, because a lot of reporters they get so many they don't open it. So at least you have a chance of them seeing those first few lines, what Eric was talking about. So that's just a little hint that I'd actually never heard before.
Yeah, I think the words were, don't send us your viruses. We don't, and everybody's worried about computer protection, and you send an attachment, and the problem you're going to have with that is people are like, well, if I open this, what's in it? And they're getting so many, they don't want to security check each and every one of them. The other thing that came out in the Tuesday session as well, which we should probably discuss, is do you go and get your press releases professionally written? How big should they be? How much detail should they go into? Are we looking for a couple of quick lines to get your attention, or are we looking at these long, detailed reports?
For us, it doesn't really matter. You don't really need a fancy press release. Usually, to Colin's point, the big stories that are out there, you're going to have a relationship. Somebody's going to contact us. We're going to talk about the big stories in person, not via press release. So for us, you could just be real. And you could just send an email, say, hey, I'm owner of XYZ company and looking to open up in Cedar Park, and love for you guys to let us know how we can, get it in the paper from an editorial standpoint. That's simple for us. You don't need to buy a press release for us.
Honestly, I think press releases, their primary purpose has evolved over the years, and it's less for the media and more so as a marketing tool, something that you can put standing on your web page to kind of prove that you've got a track record and have done some things, and it's a kind of credible way to announce your company milestones is by having a press release up there. When people call me with a news tip, I say, do you have a press release? It's not necessary, but if you've got one, send it over. If not, let's just talk and we'll do the interview that way. If you're going to do, professionals, public relations professionals that have spent time in the newsroom are really the only ones who write good press releases that matter to the media. Now, they may not write the best press release that looks good from a marketing perspective that you want to do, but press releases run the gamut, and a lot of them are just, plain horrible from a news person's perspective. They're not very valuable, meaning the actual news for us is buried, 3-4 paragraphs down. So we've gotten kind of good at not, reading just the first couple of lines. We really try. We still do sometimes because we're pressed, but we know probably you're not going to get it right. The news, the lead that we would put on the news story is probably not going to be, up top. So if you're gonna write press releases, you can do it both ways. Just realize that if you expect that to get any traction with news media, probably get somebody who has the real experience. Don't get just somebody with marketing experience, because there is a difference between marketing and public relations, and there just is. So that's my 2 cents on that.
So I think the important thing here is you notice that everybody is sharing different messages about what they want and what they need. And through SBF, we reached out to John through a press release. I picked up the phone and called Colin, and I spoke to Brad Ginsburg at KXAN by calling the news desk, and KLBJ Radio came through a relationship with somebody that was one of the founders of SBF. So each one came from a different direction, and each one was completely customized. And Colin wanted the press release, and he said, I just want that because it makes it easier to write the article. Brad Ginsburg asked me, well, what's the story? Who's the person? How can I get them on radio? And what makes them relevant right now? So we had to find specific speakers to speak on TV that made it relevant. KLBJ wanted the exact same thing. How do I make it relevant for my listeners? Because I don't want them to switch channels or switch stations, because that hurts them as a business. So let's talk about the other thing. Let's highlight the fact that while free media is 100% a wonderful thing to get, and it's great if you can get it, that doesn't mean that media is unapproachable. There are other ways to go about doing that. And even though everyone likes to say, well, yeah, I got free press, and they have this whole perspective that paid media is obviously expensive, there are ways to go about doing it in a way that actually benefits your business because it gives you a head start. So what I might do first, Bruce, is I'll get you to have a bit of a conversation about, well, when paid media or when sponsored media is actually the right choice for a business to start off.
Well, I mean, that's the business we're in, so I think it's always the right time. The most important thing behind that is you're controlling the message. When you have a news organization, you lose a little bit of control. And when you are developing a marketing strategy and implementing that, you craft that, you think that through, and you're able to, push that, that message out, and that represents you. So one thing I would recommend before you even approach, if you say, well, which one of these, what works? Which one of these work? You know what? They all work. All of these work. It depends on how you use it, what you're using it for, what your budget is, all kinds of factors. But the critical thing that's left out is we'll go talk to advertisers, and they're like, I want to advertise this weekend. And that's kind of all they know. It's like they don't really have a strategy. They haven't really thought this through. I'm not saying everybody's like that, but a lot of people are. And it's just amazing to me that they're ready to start spending money and they don't really know what they're doing. So put a lot more time into your marketing strategy and make sure you know what that is. And if you don't, hire somebody, come see us, come see any of these folks. I'm sure they can do that. And then we will implement something and make it work. I think that's what we do as a radio company is we customize things so well because we have our on-air and we have our events. We do a lot of stuff with charities and we have a lot of digital assets. So there's a lot of approaches, as do I think everybody up here does too. But that's what I would do. Make sure you're prepared and don't try something. Make sure you know what you're doing before you get into it.
Perfect. And I think that it's really important for people to realize that sometimes control makes sense and sometimes you just want to be on TV or you want to be in the paper. And the good conceptual difference in that, and just before we head over to Eric, because I've experienced that on your station. So when I go on KXAN in the morning in the breakfast sessions, we will say, here's the questions we'd like to get asked, but it has to be framed around what interest for the specific medias that are out, for the people watching, how does this fit for them and the listeners? And then when you go through sponsored content, which is the wonderful benefit when you have wonderful sponsors like yourself, you can actually control the questions and say, here's what I would love to be asked. And they feel a lot more conscious of making sure that that happens. So Eric, I'd love for you to just talk about the difference, because I think a lot of people don't understand that sometimes there is a paid way to go about things and a whole different department that is responsible for the free way of going about things as well.
Yeah, I mean, the paid way, we even have different mechanisms for the paid way. I mean, we have actually a lifestyle show that you can tune into every day on KXAN at 11 a.m. from noon to 11 a.m. to noon, and you can pay your way onto that show and have our host talk to you about your product. It would be kind of like, wouldn't that be just like a dream in our newscast, where you just come on and take up the entire newscast and we just talk about your product? Well, you could do that. It's just a lifestyle show, and it costs you money. But that's some people prefer that. It's just you like it. It makes it more real. It makes it more newsy. So, it's not as commercialized, perhaps. But then you always have the tried and true method of marketing yourselves through commercial advertising, and it's a highly effective way to do it. When it comes to the unpaid version, I think we've kind of addressed that. It's just like you do. You lose control of the message a little bit. You don't get to really focus on your distinct value proposition, which is the essence of what you want to talk about in a marketing message. And I go back to the thing I was saying earlier. I go, if you're going to go the paid route, you need to know that one of the most powerful concepts in marketing is to hold that one word and own it. Own one word about your business. When you think about that, I'll give you an example. FedEx, overnight. All right, Volvo, safety. KXAN, investigative. Own one word. Do not get into this common mistake that we all see in the business, is that trying to get 5 things about your business into a 30-second commercial or a 60-second commercial. And it just doesn't work. And do not hold a lot of water on, or what won't hold a lot of water is, what's the infamous line, locally owned, family owned and operated. Everybody says that, so stay away from that.
So I think we've heard a lot of ways to reach out to free media and lots of ways that potentially you can go through sponsored. And I think the most important message of this is there is really no right way to go about it. The important thing with free content is knowing that the media that is going to be putting your free content out and your segment out, you're not their customer. Their customer is the person that's watching. And they're trying to make sure that that content fits that customer. Where when you're looking at paid forms, you're the customer. So you get to say, this is what I want to say, and here is how I want to structure it. And that is the difference. So sometimes, from an SBF perspective, we like to be able to talk about the community, and we know that that fits their customers, so it's a perfect match. Other times, we're saying there are specific things we want to say, so we need to be the customer, and we need to do it in a completely different way. Well, because we're getting close to the end, I think that I really want to just make sure that there's nothing that we've missed. So we might just go again around, and if we could all just provide just a little bit of feedback on if you were a new business just getting started and you were trying to evaluate these two questions, and then if you made that decision to go in which direction, what was the first step that you would take to be able to make that happen?
You know, my advice is if you're a local retailer, more B2C, but some B2B, if most of your customers in the geographic area of where you live, my advice is certainly reach out to everybody. Like, you never know, you might catch somebody on the right day or the right way. But I also just am a huge believer in local chamber of commerces. I think that if you get involved there, you can get a lot of free publicity through those groups. But you can't just join and then do a ribbon cutting and leave. You have to be involved. Relationships drive everything. And I think if you do that, you'll find that all of a sudden they'll start saying, hey, why don't you be on this panel for this? Or why don't you be on this committee for that? And you can get some more exposure that way. And it's just a joy to do that because you're working with other small business owners as well. So we don't do sponsored content at Community Impact, so we can't. We're a free paper, so we have to be really careful about that. So we don't, like any business profiles we do, you can't pay for them. Those are true editorial driven decisions. So you can build relationships though with our reporters. Our reporters go to Chamber of Commerce meetings, and you can get to know them, and they can get to know you. And the curiosity of how you do things, the way you do them, is really cool to us. We love that. It inspires us. So I don't know if that's anything new, but that's who we are as an organization, and I just really admire what y'all do, and I think that starting a business or running a business is the hardest thing in the world, and I just applaud you for that. And if we can help you, please reach out to us.
Thank you. Colin?
I don't have much of any advice on sponsored content or pay-to-play stuff, because that's just not. I'm a newsman, and we just don't do that. We've got a big enough problem right now with people distinguishing what is news and what is not news. So we draw a very, very hard line on it, and again, just get to know that reporter and talk to them, and don't tell the reporter you want to pay to get this in the paper or anything like that, because that really does offend them, and they'll set you straight, like, hey, I don't handle money. We don't take gifts or meals that are above $25. When done correctly, it's a very noble profession. And again, we don't pick winners and losers. The news is what the news is. And so, just the best thing you can do is just get to know the reporter and just have that conversation with them. And if you've ever got a question on, is this newsworthy or not, call and ask. And they'll tell you no, or they'll tell you yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I have 2 points. Narrow focus yields broad results. And if you haven't heard that, I think it's just a good thing to remember. So as far as your message goes, what Eric was saying, be very focused in your message and be very focused with your approach in what you're doing. Don't try 14 different things. Try one and be very good at it and do a lot of that. That's the first thing. The second, and this really has more to do with radio, is I like to think of radio as me talking to my friend. So our on-air people are talking to all of our listeners. So it's kind of one-to-one, but it really is one-to-many. So the best kind of advertising I could ever purchase would be, or not even purchase, if I wanted to go to dinner this weekend and I want to take Tom and Michelle to dinner at a really nice place, I would probably ask my friend, hey, where's the nicest place to take Tom? And whatever they tell me, I will listen and I'll believe them. So our personalities that we have, they build that relationship with the listeners. So when you buy advertising and you have them endorse your product, it carries more weight. So it's kind of like talking to a friend. So I think it's the most powerful thing. And if I had a small business and a small budget, that's exactly what I'd do right out of the gate.
Yeah, I would just say, just make sure you have a marketing plan. So many businesses with great products have failed because they didn't market it properly. So just have a marketing plan and just make sure that you have expertise in marketing or you find somebody that does. And every one of these organizations up here have marketing expertise within their organizations. And there's plenty of other people out there that can help you as well. So marketing expertise is essential for a business to grow, and you need a marketing plan.
You know, one addition, and I think this marketing component is so important. If you're talking to somebody in media and all they're doing is trying to sell you advertising, I would leave. They need to be talking about what the marketing plan is. They should be helping you with that. And that's really what I try to get all of our people to understand. We don't sell radio advertising. We develop marketing plans, and we use radio to communicate that.
So I think, can everyone see how there are so many different ways to handle media? And we all thought, probably we all thought before we got on here, so we just send a press release and that's it. We send it out to everybody and we wait for the phone to ring. And that's not how it works. Every single person here has said, this is the way you can approach me. Oh, and there's also 7 different ways we can do it. If you'd want to take Colin out and you spend more than $25 on him, he definitely can't do anything for you in the media. John just wants to have a chat with you and understand your business, and his focus is that he doesn't do any sponsored content. You've got to understand from everyone's perspective what outcomes they're trying to obtain and who's the customer at that specific time. And for those people that are listening and they're like, well, why won't somebody talk about what I want them to talk about on the news? Well, the answer is, would you listen to it? If it was somebody else's product or somebody else's service and they were on there just talking about their product, you'd change the channel, wouldn't you? So you need to realize that when you're reaching out to any one of these people, why is it relevant to the people that are reading or watching or listening to their stations or their distribution channels? And if you can't answer that question, you shouldn't pick up the phone until you can answer it, because you're making it harder for yourself the next time you pick up the phone and call anyone and say, hey, I've got this great idea, because you didn't leave the best impression the first time. So I'm just looking at how much time we have left, and we might have room for one or two questions. So is there anyone that has any questions they would like to ask? Anyone, or have we done our job well? Yeah.
I just want to make an observation. So I don't really read print anymore, but the community impact is one that I will keep. And my husband's like, are you really going to read that? And I said, yes, from cover to cover. So I just wanted to tell you that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I noticed you. I said that she looks really smart out there. Work on your husband, though. He hopefully he'll read it too.
Well,
Yeah.
Thank
you for saying that.
So I can say that everybody up here has an absolute heart for small business, because our community-minded festival, and as you know, we put on, I think, 107 free events in the community this year across 18 states. So we were excited to be able to do that, but nobody here would have found out about it without the help of everybody that's sitting here and all the media that helped us in all of those other states. Now, they didn't do that because they were getting paid. They did it because they believed it was helping small businesses. And they supported us when we had no support. So if you're doing something that truly helps the community, or that the community will truly benefit from, you should reach out to every one of these groups and say, how can you help us? If you're doing it because you have a for-profit mentality, you have to expect some people have to make money. I mean, media is a business. So if you're approaching it as a business, you've got to remember that they're businesses too. So I think we had one more question.
Since you guys say it will be good to develop a marketing plan before it reaches to you guys, which book on marketing do you guys recommend for small business owners to read so we can have a better insight on how marketing works?
Eric?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's a, I would just Google marketing, and marketing books, best marketing books. You Google that, and you will get a list of all the best. I've done that before. I did it on leadership books because I'm into leadership. But they give you a list of really good books. The one that I was recently reviewing, just because I'm thinking about marketing a lot for our own brand right now, is the 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. Yes, Trout and Reese, that's exactly right. So I'd start there. In fact, you used the word focus. That was like chapter 5. It's all about focus and the one thing. And so I'm basically just stealing these guys' ideas on stage here. So the book, that is.
The other thing you really need to realize is that if you haven't read Simon Sinek's Start With Why, it might be another really great one, because why do we care? is one of the questions that everybody here will have. Why do we care and why is it relevant to the people that are sitting in front of us, or the people that are reading or listening to our networks? So I hope that helps. Perfect. You got one more question?
And press release, just put that. There's not, yeah, that we'd be guaranteed to open that.
I think personalization of it is really important. Like when it's, I mean, when it's a form email, everyone can tell. It's like hilarious. Like, because even when it comes through your preview, sometimes it says, you know, it has the brackets of, you know, name, even though it says your name. So no form letters. You know, if you really want to be in a publication or on air, like say like why. Very early. That's what's important to me personally. Like, and I know our reporters are take a lot of pride in what they do. And if you're like sitting, we had one guy that, you know, and if you're gonna sit out masked, like BCC the mask. Like, don't put it in the subject line at everybody you're sitting out to. It's really impersonal. So I think being personal is incredibly helpful. I would probably read the one you're gonna die. I'd probably read that. I don't know if it would go very far, but I would definitely read it.
So I think you got to really remember, there's not that many media in Austin and in Greater Austin. So if you're that busy that you can't send a personalized email to maybe 7 or 8 different media channels, you're probably too busy to have new customers, right? So it's probably not the right way to put your best foot forward with everybody here. So really, personalization, I think, is the absolute key. And please do not feel bad about picking up the phone and actually using that as a medium. These days, we try and hide behind our laptops a little bit too much. And we've really got to take that opportunity to pick up the phone and actually speak to people. But we're out of time, so I'd really like, and everybody here only found out about Small Business Festival because of the people that are sitting up on the stage right now. So I'd love it if everybody could just give a round of applause to everyone on the stage today. Thank you.